Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our brand new podcast, Ramp is Inclusion. This will be a weekly podcast streamed live on the Coalition Radio Network, on the Coalition Talk Radio on Facebook. We will have special guests each week joining us, talking about inclusion, accessibility, and in and out of the disability community and how you can help. We have a fantastic guest with us today. We have Tammy Russo from Ripen, Rhode Island Parent Information Network. Welcome, Tammy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tina. How you doing?
Great. We're going to have a great night, and we want to learn a little bit about you. Give us a little synopsis of who you are and where you work and what you're about.
So, as you know, I do work for Rhode Island Parent Information Network, but my proudest thing is that I am the mother of a 27-year-old man who is disabled, and he is our reason for doing these types of things and getting the word out about disability awareness and how we can help.
Oh, that's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about life with Joey, especially being an adult, with a disability. Tell us about his disability and what life is like with a child with a disability.
Well, Joey is 27. However, his cognitive level is that of a 4 to 7-year-old, which is sometimes hard to understand because outwardly he does have some physical disability, including a paralysis of his right side. And his cognitive delay is basically the thing that really, does set up some challenges for us. So life with him is, mostly great, but there are some hurdles that we've had to go over through the years, and access and services is one of them. There's all different kinds of things in the lifespan that of a child that we had to find ways around or couldn't participate in. And it was just really a learning experience every step of the way, and it continues to be to this day.
All right.
But
just taking us back a little bit to 27 years ago when you first found out that you were going to have, a very special child. How was that like, navigating the world? Or did you have people in mind? Did you know ahead of time? Or was it a complete shock and, you had to navigate quickly?
Yes, when I did not have time to prepare. Joey was actually a premature baby. He was born at 27 weeks gestation. And as a preemie, a lot of the conditions that they are susceptible to, one includes brain hemorrhaging, which is basically like having a stroke at birth. And unfortunately, Joey had the worst grade of brain bleed on both sides of his brain. So I did not have time to prepare. And we spent the first 4 months and 4 days of his life in the neonatal intensive care unit at Women and Infants Hospital. And that's kind of where my journey began. I was so thankful for the discharge team there because they were the ones that were able to connect Joey and I to early intervention and other services that would help me to support his development along his childhood years. But there was no time. There was no preparation. It was very scary and really touch and go for a long time because his health was, he is, still considered medically fragile, still suffers from seizures, anxiety, autism, the right side paralysis. So we had a lot of challenges to get over, but that's where the journey started, was in the NICU, and I was so thankful to have them.
Were they very supportive with you? I mean, did they give you everything that you somewhat needed to go out in the world by yourself? Or did you have a hard time locating services, or was it readily available to you?
So in early intervention, I did have a service coordinator that worked with us solely. There were a lot of things that I had to navigate on my own, like being able to get affordable housing in Section 8. They were able to point us in the right direction and support us, but I do have to say, there were always gaps, and it was always, a challenge to get over one thing because, they said that he should qualify for SSI, but then you have to go through the whole process of SSI. And
Yeah.
it was just a lot to navigate with a newborn. So they were very helpful. And one of the great things was that all of the visits, they took place at home, where Joey and
Right.
I were all the time. So that was really helpful. And they did give us assistance when we were going into the school system. But even
Oh,
that,
good.
that's so, yeah, it was really hard to figure out a lot of the, process and what he might qualify, how he would qualify, all of
Right.
those things. Yes.
It's with the 30th anniversary of the ADA this year and Joey being 27, the ADA was only 3 years old. Did that help you? Do you think prior to the ADA being signed, how can you correlate the two, like in the
I would
processes?
just It did help me a lot, that it was already enacted before his birth, because then I didn't have to worry about if he should be able to be educated with children that were not disabled. It offered us access to that. And with his physical disability, making sure that the doorways were wide enough, and that, there were, because his gait is still very, it's still very unsteady. So being able to, know that ADA was there to protect us in case we needed to go into buildings or do anything like that. It was very, very helpful for me. And
Right.
I don't know how people did it before there was ADA,
Yeah.
because that had given us so many guidelines that we can just use to advocate and say,
Right.
I had to do it many times during Joey's school years, because at one point he was in a classroom where there was only one exit out.
Oh,
I was like, yes, I
that's
was
dangerous
very
for an
worried.
able-bodied child. Never mind a child with a special need. You know what I mean? Who's already hard to
Hmm.
navigate. You know. Oh, that's
Yes, and
scary.
so
We have a
that was
we have a long way to go
extremely.
with. Yeah. We have a long way to go with the ADA, but it is a huge help, and at least it gives us some backing for some of the needs
Hmm.
that we have. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. If you had to give
Hmm.
advice to a new parent, um, just getting that news, going back, what would you say to them? Like, what would be your best
Um,
advice to them?
my
I
best
know I'm putting you
advice
on the
would be
spot
to
a little bit.
No, 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 no. Like, this is something that we had to do a lot of times along the way, when we realized that Joey wasn't going to meet certain milestones in a certain way that people would expect. So my best
Right.
advice would be to take the cues from your child. You know what their limitations are, know what their strengths are, and then I would also, if I could go back in time, I would wish that somebody would tell me to stop writing down like that notebook of questions for all of the people that were supporting him, because it was
Right.
really hard for me. When he was first born, we had cardiologists, neurologists, pediatric developmental psychologists. We had all of these different providers that were there to help me with Joey's development. But a lot of times when I got to those meetings or those appointments, it was like, oh, I forgot to ask him this question. So
Right.
I would
Right.
definitely say to all parents, write down your questions, really prepare for your medical appointments, for your school appointments, and utilize what
Yeah.
resources that you have, like Rhode
Yeah.
Island Parent
I
Information
Yeah,
Network.
I completely agree with that because even as an adult, I mean, like I said, I've only been in the disabled community for 6 years now. But I find it overwhelming when I go to an appointment by myself and all of the symptoms or things that I want to ask, and then they start throwing things at you with test results and stuff that you forget. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
always, I always in my wheelchair carry a notebook and write it down as I think about it, and then I have it with me to pull out when I get to the doctor's appointment. That is great advice, and that's for any age. That advice.
It really
You
is.
just
I
mentioned
still do it today at 27 years old. My husband and I never go into an appointment without having some sort of a guide or questions to ask and to because for when you're disabled as early as Joey was, there's lots and lots of meetings and processes that you have to go
right,
to really make that base for them and to create that scaffolding. So you really want to know where he's at now, where you hope he will be, what you think would help, those kinds of things. And questions are there's never a stupid question. I want every parent in the
right.
world to understand that no matter what age you're supporting, even if it's an elderly parent that you're supporting. We have a lot of that sandwich generation now where you're taking care of a
Right.
child and you're taking care of a parent. And
Yeah.
I cannot stress enough what a notebook could do.
Well, you have to be your own advocate. No one's going to know your day-to-day life like you. So, a question that you think is stupid probably was never asked to the doctor because it doesn't fit your situation. And that's what you need to understand, that these questions need to be asked not only for your benefit, but maybe you're educating the doctor of a new circumstance that they haven't encountered yet.
Right. And that happened a
Yeah.
lot along Joey's way.
Yeah. You mentioned and you work at the Rhode Island Parent Information Network, Ripen.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Ripen.
Oh, good. Ripon is our little gym that we have here in our state. About 80% of our staff, they actually are living this life of supporting somebody with disabilities, or an employee actually has the disability themselves, and using that really kind of, we call it the secret sauce in our meetings, because it truly is peer to peer. It's peer to peer. Like,
Right.
we're not just giving you a pamphlet or a phone number to check out. We've walked that walk and we know some of the hurdles that can come, and we actually have a lot of tools that are available just by calling our main number. That number is 401-270-0101. We support Rhode Islanders of all ages. So, one of our busiest programs is our call center. And I don't know that a lot of people know we house this because of the name Parent Information Network, but we actually are the consumer call center for all insurances, all medical insurances in Rhode Island. So
Oh,
whether
wow.
it's a
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Medicaid, yes, see, and Medicaid, Medicare, anything bought through the exchange, or employer sponsored um, insurances, when there are denials of services, or there are questions of what's covered, or people are just retiring and need to know a little bit about a supplemental plan. We have a whole call center that's dedicated to helping consumers in Rhode Island figure out really what best would serve them. We
Yeah,
also
that
have
that's great.
Yes, and you can call the main number, and all you have to do is press the prompt for health insurance questions, and you'll be connected right to our call center that would be able to pick up the phone and answer that question for you. And then we have a large amount of programs that really help the children that are having that are struggling with disabilities, and we help to prepare parents using like telephonic, um, email communication, telephonic communication, Zoom meetings. With COVID here, we've been having to do a lot of Zoom meetings, but when things are healthy enough, that we actually even go into homes and help
Oh, wow.
parents and families to navigate the systems. So we have the early intervention parent consultant program where I can just go through the span of life and then So that would be
Right.
your 0 to 3 population, your babies, your toddlers that have disabilities. We actually have a parent consultant who is our peer professional in each one of the 9 agencies in our state. So there's a parent there that's been through early intervention that you can call up and you can say, hey, how do I get the most out of my services? Or my child's 2.5, and at 3 years old, they're going to have to go to school. What do I do? So
Right.
those are the kinds of questions that a parent consultant can answer. And then we also have our parent training and information center. So when you call our main number and you have an education question, you get connected to professionals that have worked with IEPs, supporting somebody that they love or have them themselves had an IEP, and they can give you some guidance and assistance on where you can find regulations, how you can advocate for yourself or your child, right up until making your transition like Joey did from high school at, I think it's 22 now. When Joey was going through the
Right.
transition to adulthood, it was 21. But we service all ages there for special ed support. So that's really a great tool to use. And we also have a care coordination, a number of care coordination projects. One of them actually supports children that are the ages of 3 to 21, 22. And then we have one for elder care. So we actually get
Wow, I
referrals,
didn't know
and
that.
it's yes, and that's our care management program. We actually help adults that have Medicaid or Medicare to really look for resources to help them. So there's a lot of different programs and across the whole span of the lifetime.
Right. I didn't know that they did elder care as well, and the whole medical connection is huge because I know myself. I have problems, navigating the system and what I can get covered and what I can't get covered, and because I'm married with a husband who has a job and he holds health coverage, but his health coverage doesn't cover everything that I need, so I have a backup
Right.
Medicare. But I wouldn't have known that I could have done that without speaking to somebody. So those
Oh
are
yeah.
important programs that everybody needs to know
Hmm.
about, you
And we
know?
also even
Um,
have programs that if when you're a person that has a chronic condition like diabetes or something like that, that we offer educational classes and workshops on a lot of different topics, ranging from school topics to wellness topics. And we also have the Family Voices program for here in Rhode Island, and they help a lot with advocacy and teaching consumers how they could advocate on the state level. And they offer a great training, Policy 101, where if you're interested and you want to advocate at a higher level, that can be your starting point. By taking that workshop, you get to know a little bit more about that process. So it's
right.
really great. And there's a whole slew of different workshops that we have, and you can find those all on our website, which is
Okay.
ripon.org,
Okay.
ripin.org. And there's a calendar of all the workshops that we're holding right now.
Yeah. I've been dealing with a bunch of individuals who they're older in life and their children are older, and they're concerned at this point of, what's going to happen to their child if something happened to them. Is that something
Oh,
that Ripon can help and guide you through to make sure that you have all the right things in place? Because, I mean, God forbid something, especially with COVID right now, anything could happen. You know what I mean? It's
oh,
something you don't want to think
yeah.
about, but you want to be prepared. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that your child, no matter what, is taken care of. Is that something Ripon can help with as well?
With the transition to adulthood, we do, help because we are peers and we've had to go through a number of us have had to go through that system ourselves. There are ways that we can give you to prepare, but best thing to do is to connect really with the social worker that you're assigned to if
Okay.
you're on the state level through BHDDH. the Behavioral Health, Developmental Disabilities and Hospital State Agency. They actually, they can help with those kinds of things. And there's lots of great tools out there. Like even if you look at CDC, our Centers for Disease Control, they have a lot of different tools for parents to plan when that actually, when that does happen, because it's a reality that we're all dealing with. And like you said, especially now with the
Right.
pandemic, you never know when that can happen. So there are a lot of different tools that you can use, and you can find a lot of those on the CDC website, like just preparing for, just questions of what to write down, what to make sure your family members are aware of. There's a lot of different
Right.
tools that I found there. And if you're a parent, one of the things that we also use is the Rhode Island Medical Home Portal. So this is an
Okay.
initiative that our Department of Health actually brought to our state, and it's in conjunction with Utah. And we actually are able to give an online resource there, and there's a lot of great planning tools in that website. And that website would
Oh,
be ri.medicalhomeportal.org, and that would
oh,
really
that's
help.
great.
Yeah, and then if you look
There's
in
so
the
many,
Family
yeah, I
Care
mean, there's so
Notebook.
many great resources out there that, people just don't know about. Tell me more about some of the other resources that you use.
So a lot that I've had to use with Joey do include that CDC. One of the great ones that I found there was, as we get older, you're really looking, like, especially in the high school years and the transition years, and you can find this on the medical home portal too. Um, just make sure our state is selected when you go there, because there are a number of states that participate in that. So make sure Rhode
Yeah,
Island is clicked. But they actually have a lot of tools there, like an adolescent checklist. So, our kids that have disabilities, we want them to be included in their medical visits as much as they can be. And there are tools inside that medical home portal, when you click on the care notebook tools, that you can just download, save to your computer. You can print them out later. You can write out, the information, everything from school contacts to medical contacts to an adolescent checklist to check on, like, what kind of life skills do I have to start teaching my kid. It's hard to look at things from
right,
that really, you know bird's eye point of view. And a lot of the tools on the medical home portal really help me even today now to, like, really zoom in on, okay, where do I want Joey's skills to improve? How within his level can he improve and participate
right,
as much as he can? So a lot of those tools really helped me. And the CDC, if you have a little one, they have a really great a really great toolkit that's learn the signs, act early. So if you have a really small child, like, in the early intervention range, 0 to 3, there's a lot of tools there where you can actually check on milestones, what they should be doing at what age, and if they're not meeting their
right,
milestones, who you can contact to get them evaluated, to get them started on their road to, evaluation, identification of the disability, and then later on to the preparation of what services they'd need.
right. That's fantastic. Like I said, some of this I didn't even know myself, and I have into the disabled community, but you don't realize how much involved all of this is. You know, um, how is it being a working mom with a child with special needs?
I think the worst part is the guilt that I feel sometimes, because you feel like you should be dedicating so much time to your child, and then here you are working, but it is a necessity. And the balance is tough a lot, but luckily, my employer is very flexible. And I mean, if there's a message that we can get out to business owners in Rhode Island that are employing us, and um, is to really kind of look at those challenges that we face, because you know I have never, knock on wood, had to worry about, my employer being understanding of when I needed to take time off because
Right,
Joey's health
right,
was declining, when things came up. But really, just to let them know that there really is a balance. But I mean, you cannot match the amount of experience that comes from our peers, because firsthand experience, I feel, is always best hand experience. And, even
Right.
though it's hard to strike that balance, I also see it as, as me being able to extend that help to others. It is hard now, especially because Joey, with the pandemic hitting, Joey had no support for months. We actually just last week started actually having his a worker come in the house and work with him for a very short shift. But it is a really tough balance, and especially if you're a parent that has a child that is disabled and requires a lot of attention, and then you also have other children that are typically developing and they also need your attention. And it's really
Right.
hard to kind of even that off. So what I used to say to parents when I worked with them is, carve out a little time, really look at that, take time for yourself to take a breath, and realize that the siblings are also going through it. When a child has a disability, it's not just the mom or the dad or the primary caregiver going through it, it's everybody that lives in the house going through it. And
Right.
to just really be, to really be cognizant of that, and to make sure that you're taking the time to, maybe spend a couple of hours with the typically developing sibling unattended, on undivided attention with them. And then, making sure that those balance, that, it is a balancing act, but it is possible to do, and it is very
Right.
rewarding, because I feel like in the work that I do, I can help others and hopefully make their
Right.
journey a little bit easier.
Right, because it's tough on a parent, because like you said, it's one, the parent guilt of going to work and leaving your child, but then having a typical child at home, and you could be all consumed in your time at home with your other child that needs you. You still got to realize that your other typical child needs you for just basic needs, because they're needy too. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I don't know how everybody does it. Like I said, I try to navigate the world myself, and I find that difficult. Never mind trying to take
Oh,
care of
sure.
somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's so hard. Do you find that other moms look differently upon you or say things differently upon you for, you know what I mean? Like, is it well expected or respected, I should say, in the working field of doing that, because I know some moms think, everybody should be staying home, and then you got the moms that, no, we got to
Hmm.
work. How is it any
Yeah.
different for being a mom of disability?
Well, there are a lot of differences, and as far as like other people's kind of view into onto your life, I mean, the challenges mostly that I had, I was actually a young mom. I was 18 when Joey was born. So there's a lot of discrimination kind of that happens when you're um
Right.
like Joey had to have nursing and things like that. So doctors, when I would take Joey's nurse with me just to be extra hands and ears, they would actually direct their questions towards Joey. I mean, towards the
Right.
nurse about Joey. And I was like, wait a minute, they're here for 4 hours a day. I'm here for the other 20. Why are you asking them? So I would
Right.
say in
Right.
the beginning, my biggest problem with the way that people were perceiving my family, meaning at the time it was just Joey and I, was, it was in a very like I felt like I was prejudged a lot by the medical
Right.
community, because they would look at you and they would say, oh, you're a young mom, what do you know, like, I'm going
Right.
to talk to the
Yeah.
nurse because they have the professional degree. But as far as other moms, I find that when they find out that I've actually, and especially when I started, I worked in early intervention, and there's a different level of connection that I was able
Right.
to achieve with those moms, because I wasn't just a professional with a degree. I was actually a mom that had to walk through it and go through the same doors as them and go through the same
Right.
process as them. So I don't find that moms are prejudgmental of, me working, but I do sense that sometimes from the medical community. like, oh
Yeah.
boy, they got all these problems, and what do how are you
Yeah.
doing this and working too? But with other parents, I feel the connection is it's actually more fruitful because they know that you're coming at it from a different angle, not just with a degree and that you walked out of from
Right.
some
Right.
university. You have
Yeah.
lived experience. You've cried at the same frustrations. You've had the same
Right.
barriers come up when you try to access services and things like that. But for the most part, I feel like they're very appreciative, and a lot of times I've heard them say, I don't know how you do it. And then I say, well, that makes two of us. But you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
You
I mean,
know, and
I fully understand because, like I said, I mean, being an adult with a disability and being a somewhat newly diagnosed disability, I find that, there are many people who don't understand, like, they think because I'm in a wheelchair that I should be home all the time, that I should be at their beck and call. I'm like, I'm working constantly. I'm on the phone. I'm running the organization. I'm doing my own things. Like, they just feel that, where are you going? What do you have to do? Like, I'm busy. I have a job.
Mhm.
I have an organization. I work for the state. I do so many different hats, but I find it that they feel that I should just be at their beck and call because I'm in a wheelchair and I should be able to just be carefree and not have any responsibilities. And it's tough. So, I mean, I feel you there, but I mean, the medical
Yeah,
community
I
accepts
beg to
me
differ.
because
I
I'm an
think
adult.
I beg to differ because I think that your experience, and especially at the time in your life where it happened, I mean, who knows better than you? You've been on both sides of the coin, like
Right.
it's just
And that's it. I didn't see the
I'm thankful
barriers.
you work.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, when I was walking and, as you say, able bodied, I didn't realize how many barriers were out there. I didn't realize, the difficulties out
Mhm.
there, that I get to see it from both sides. You know what I mean? And I get to give a different perspective, but people don't see it from the same both sides that I do. They just feel that I should just kind of give up and roll in a ball and just kind of be told what to do. But if they know me for half a second, that's not going to happen.
Nope.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
thankful for
Um,
that myself.
yeah. Um, let's talk about special circumstances. That people readily wouldn't think about. Like, just recently, I lost my power for from Tuesday at 2 o'clock. I didn't get it back until Saturday at 6. So I was a quite span, and people were complaining that their fridge is going to go out and they're going to lose food. Well, my worry was, is I use a motorized wheelchair and it's dead, and I can't get to the bathroom. I can't get to the
Yeah.
fridge to get something to eat. I can't let my dogs out. And then you get the people, well, you should have a generator. That's great. How do I afford a generator on SSDI? Or, if I could, how do I plug it in by myself in a wheelchair in a house? How am I going to drag a generator out to plug in? Like,
Exactly.
what somebody else might think is a simple solution, there's a lot more that goes into that than people even realize. What did you find some special
Mhm.
circumstances that you wish people would understand more?
Well, because Joey isn't, he's not in a wheelchair, thankfully. And when you just look at him, from a distance, you can't tell the difficulty that he has. Special circumstances for us are really like giving Joey the time to, like, even when you ask him a question, Joey's cognitive level, he needs to process it first. And
Right.
sometimes people don't allow that time for him to come up with an answer. Um, and other things are that I wish people would understand is that if I'm out with my son, and or his worker is out with him, and like members of the community are waiting on them, where talk to Joey. Talk to Joey. It's his order. And a lot of times what I find is much the same as when I was that 18-year-old in the neurologist office. They would look to the other person to answer them, and I'm like, but it's
Right.
his order, so speak to
Right.
him,
Right.
let him. let him give him time to process the question you just asked him, and just,
Yeah.
maybe count to three to give him enough chance to answer you. Because I would
Right.
I would like him to be able to have interactions with other people, but sometimes I find that if they don't, and even things like checking in at a medical doctor's office, like that might seem like a little thing, but to my husband and I, that's kind of like a huge thing, because that's the only thing that
Right.
Joey can do at the doctor's office for himself. So really just
Right.
letting, like, I try, we always try to stand back and say, okay, Joey, go tell him your name. And, he'll go up there and
Right.
say, I'm Joey Russo here for Dr. So and
Yeah.
so. But not everybody gives him that chance to really
Right.
engage in a conversation with them. And I wish they understood that, speak to him,
It's
you
important.
know.
And that's one of the big things that we advocate for with ramp, because there will be more times that I'll be out with my son or out with my husband, and they're like, "What does she need? She's sitting right here. My legs don't work. My mouth sure does. Trust me." And most of them just like roll their eyes and say, "You don't know what you just got yourself into," kind of thing. But like I'll say to somebody, if you're talking to somebody with an ASL interpreter, don't look at the interpreter. You don't know what they're signing anyway. Talk to the person that
Exactly.
you're interacting with. The eye contact is huge for that person. The
Hmm.
social interaction for that person is huge. Not everybody is mentally incapacitated that they can't answer for themselves or they can't respond for themselves. Give them the opportunity and the respect that you would give to anybody. I fully agree with that. You know,
Yes,
it,
and
it,
I
it's
and
so hard.
especially that's a great point about the hearing impaired, because and making sure that you give them. I remember a long time ago I worked with a lady that had um disability. She was hard of hearing. She used to wear a pin on her shirt because she was able to read lips. And but people wouldn't even want to give her like the extra 3 seconds so she could read what you're saying. And that
Right,
was
right,
always, that was one of the things that I was always, but so when you, and it's such a great point. ASL is a language, and that's another thing that I think ADA can really improve on, is that I want, just like everybody recognizes English and Spanish as a language, they should recognize ASL as a language. And I feel like that
right,
does pose a lot of accessibility issues for people, because you don't have a professional there to to do the American Sign Language. I've heard a lot of it from, like I have a cousin that is deaf and she requires an ASL interpreter. And a lot of times if they go to visit so with their doctor, they they don't even have anybody there for her to communicate with.
right,
And I'm like, that's her language. Like
right.
we need to do more to recognize that.
Yeah, I agree with you because I think it's a language. It's forgotten. We're forgotten the basics. You know what I mean? We're so busy catering to everybody else that we're forgetting the basics, and we matter too. You know what I mean? Our
Mhm.
whatever our disability is, we matter too. We contribute to society. We are active parts of society. Don't count us out. Give us the opportunity to prove you wrong, is what I like to say,
Mhm.
because 90% of
Mhm.
us will prove you wrong in one way, shape, or another. I'm sure Joey does it on a
Mhm.
daily basis. Yeah.
Well, for the day
Now
he was born, he wasn't even supposed
yeah.
to talk at
Is he
all.
vocal? Yeah. Is he vocal
Um,
enough to stand up for himself? Like when somebody ignores him, like will he do that, or is
he's
that where you
he's
have to step in?
able. Well, he can understand questions, and I do tell people that work with him, like, pretend that you have to think of his cognitive age as well. And so if
Right.
you're giving him simple questions, he'll be able to answer you. And if he doesn't like what you're doing, he'll tell you, whether it's to shoo your arm away or hit you or say no, he'll do
Right.
it. Um, but
Right.
one of the biggest challenges we have with Joey and his cognitive delay, and something that I really wish the ADA would take a better look at, is hospitalizations. They are not. I mean, Joey had to go from, the quiet little cocoon of Hasbro Hospital where they cater to these kids, and they're bringing them video games, and they're bringing them. You got the life program. So if he wanted to go during a
Right.
hospitalization and sit in a room and do an activity, he could do that. But people forget that there are cognitive disabilities. And when you turn 18 and they're not taking you at Hasbro Hospital anymore, and now you have to go to Rhode Island Hospital or Miriam Hospital or Kent Hospital, people don't understand that you're treating a 27-year-old body, but that body has a 4 to 7-year-old mind. So in
Right.
Joey's last long hospitalization, it was very frustrating for my husband and I because they didn't understand that one of us had to sleep over in his room each day, which was almost 3 weeks he was in the hospital. He had a
Right.
really, really bad setback back in 2012, and there was nothing. Like they didn't understand that my husband and I had to be there. Joey doesn't realize he has a disability. Joey doesn't know how to tell them a medical history. Joey needs a
Right.
private room. All of these things are not considered at the hospital level for adults right now in our state. And to me, that's
Right.
always been a very hard, and I've done everything. I've filed complaints with, patient advocacy offices that go nowhere. I've reported
Right.
it to my congressman. I have done everything, and still it is difficult because they even will try it. When Joey had to do a emergency room visit by ambulance, he was seizing. We had to take him in to the hospital, and they were trying to kick us out. Oh, there's too many people back here. I was like, oh
Right.
no. I was like, he can't give you a
Yeah.
medical health history. He can't tell you what
Yeah.
medications he's on. We need to be there. And,
Right.
that
It,
is one thing that I feel is a
yeah.
huge barrier for families that are
It almost,
supporting
yeah.
those with
It almost
the
seems that
developmental
like
disability.
Hasbro should have a separate floor since they're connected to Rhode Island Hospital anyway. Should have a separate floor for those who are over 18, but yet cognitively still children, where they can still be have the support of Hasbro, but yet an adult type area. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So they're not with the little kids.
I would even challenge that the adult hospitals need to do specialized training and create special accommodations for these adults, because we want them to feel like adults and be included in their adult community. But if you're putting up all these barriers and you know that that person needs, is developmentally delayed and can't even give you a medical health history, why wouldn't you want them there? Why wouldn't you, you know, make sure that they had the accommodation of a private room in order for their advocate or parent, guardian, whoever
Right.
it might be present during that hospitalization? Because um, that, and another thing that happens too is that when Joey is in a different environment that he's not used to, such as a hospital, his anxiety, it like is off the charts, and
Right.
he can become combative because he doesn't have the words to tell people this is what I'm feeling or I'm scared.
Right.
So these are all things that I really wish that were addressed a little bit better in our state, and really taking the time to understand this community and realize that, all of these children that are born with disabilities, they're going to grow up and they need those same support system and that same scaffolding as an adult as they did when they were a child.
Child.
The
Right.
disabilities don't go away magically because they reach the age of 22 and they no longer have to go to school. They still
Right.
have that
Right.
disability to live with every single day of their life.
Right. It's so true. And, like I said, we still have a long way to go. And we're our children's best advocates, whether they're able bodied or not. We're our children's best advocates. And that goes for adults too. no one can speak for you other than you. No one knows exactly what you're feeling but you. So we got to keep pushing the envelope, and someday down the road we got to just make it happen. But we need to do
I
better. Bottom line is,
I
especially
agree.
with COVID, we need to do better. And it's going to take people like us who are vocal and in a positive way. You don't have to be angry about it. You don't have to be mad about it, because people aren't doing it maliciously. They're doing it because they don't realize it. You know what I mean? So we need to
Hmm.
make it happen, and we need to keep pushing the envelope going forward. Um, we're almost about at that time. Give us some closing remarks of, how you feel and how we should wrap this whole up, and like what you would like to see going forward.
I would just like to make sure that we're raising that awareness. We're celebrating the ADA, but realizing that we need to take it to another level and to never stop thinking of those that need that extra help in our community. And if you do come across them, give them an opportunity. You know, give them the sense that everybody should have of community, and just give them a chance. It might include thinking outside of the box, but I think that we're tenacious enough, we can do it. And then
Right.
I would also just reiterate to parents, keep good records. Nothing is better than parent report. Make sure that you're doing keep that notebook like Tina and I talked about earlier. Really start to zone in on what problems or what things that are creating barriers for your child to live his or her fullest life, and just
Right.
really put up that scaffolding. And please advocate wherever you can, whether it's at the state level, the school level, the hospital level. Just really be a voice for those that can't raise their own voices but have to
Right.
live with the circumstances that we put in place.
Yeah. I mean, a big thing that I think is every time that I go to the hospital, I keep a folder with me at all times. And every time I get that discharge paper, I put it in my folder. Because if I have a stroke again and I can't speak for myself and somebody needs to come and pick me up, they have my red bag that tells them where my folder is on my wheelchair, my red bag with all of my medical information in it. And they have a full synopsis. No matter where I am in this
Hmm.
country, I have a non digital copy of my records, so people know
Absolutely.
how to take care of me, what kind of medication I'm on. That's why I so advocate for the red bag carrier, because it gives a good summary of basic information to at least get you started. And on that you could write,
Hmm.
Joey needs me or my husband if something happened and he wasn't with us. Make sure
Hmm.
that we're called first. I just think it's so
Hmm.
important that people have this information on them, because you never know what could happen. You never know
Never.
how life can change in an instant. Like I said, 10 minutes, my life changed permanently in an instant. And your
Hmm.
life, when you didn't know what was going to happen with Joey, you had a baby thinking you were going to start this fresh new life, and you had all of these roadblocks. You know what I mean? That just
Hmm.
popped up. We need to be prepared. We need to do better, and we need to always, always, always advocate. But
Yes,
this was a great
everywhere that
show.
we can.
Yeah, I thank you so much for being my guest today. This was so much great information, and now my dog is going to act up just on time. He's on cue. He's telling mom it's time. Um, but thank you for being here. We're going to put all of these links on. So just give us a number to ripen again.
It is 401-270-0101. Please contact us with your needs. We look forward to working with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tammy, and we'll be talking to you soon. Have a
You're
great night.
welcome. Take care, Tina.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Thank you.